There's something magnetic about certain women. You can't quite explain it, but when they walk into a room, the energy shifts. They don't need attention. They command respect. They don't chase love. They attract it effortlessly. And it's not because of how they look, but because of who they are. These women are rare, not because they were born with something special, but because they chose to become it. And that's what I want to talk about today. 5 habits that make a woman truly rare. Rare women don't live for validation. They live for vision. Most people, men and women alike, fall into the trap of wanting to be liked. We adjust our behavior, our opinions, even our dreams, just to fit in. But a rare woman understands something powerful. Approval is temporary. Purpose is eternal. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must decide what matters more. Living a life that earns approval or living a life that fulfills purpose. For most people, this decision isn't loud or dramatic. It happens quietly in the everyday choices we make. The job we accept because it looks impressive to others. The relationship we stay in because we fear what people will say if we leave. The dream we put on hold because someone told us it's not practical. Slowly, without realizing it, we start to shape our lives around expectations instead of intention. But a rare kind of woman breaks that pattern. She stops asking, "What will they think of me?" and starts asking, "What do I think of me?" She understands that no amount of external approval can fill the emptiness that comes from betraying yourself. The world will always have opinions. That's its nature. One day you'll be praised, the next you'll be criticized. If your sense of worth depends on that roller coaster, you'll spend your life chasing a moving target that never ends. Choosing purpose over approval is not about rebellion. It's about alignment. It means living in a way that feels honest. It means understanding that your path will look different from everyone else's and being okay with that difference. Some people will misunderstand you. Some will judge you. Some will leave. And that's part of the process. Because purpose is not meant to please everyone. It's meant to fulfill you. Imagine a young woman who always wanted to start her own business. She has the vision, the creativity, the drive. But her family tells her it's risky. Her friends suggest she should play it safe and find a stable job. So she listens to them. She takes the job, earns the paycheck, smiles for the pictures. And every night she feels a quiet ache in her chest. That ache is her purpose calling. It's the part of her that refuses to be silenced. Years later, she might realize that approval never gave her peace, but purpose always could have. The truth is, approval feels good for a moment, but it fades quickly. Purpose, on the other hand, roots itself deep within you. It gives meaning to your failures and direction to your success. When you live for approval, every setback feels like a verdict. When you live for purpose, every setback feels like a lesson. That's the difference. And it's not easy. Living by purpose requires courage. It means saying no when everyone expects you to say yes. It means trusting your gut when logic tells you to follow the crowd. It means accepting that growth often happens in solitude, not applause. The world rarely celebrates you at the beginning of your journey. It celebrates you after you've proven that your path was worth walking. There's something magnetic about people who live this way. They radiate authenticity. They don't need to shout about what they're doing because their actions speak louder than any words could. You can feel it when you're around them. That calm certainty that says, "I know who I am and why I'm here." That's what draws people to them. Ironically, when you stop living for approval, you begin to attract genuine respect. Because people are inspired by conviction, not conformity. Choosing purpose over approval also changes the way you see failure. When you're seeking approval, failure feels like humiliation. But when you're guided by purpose, failure becomes information. It tells you what didn't work so you can get closer to what will. You start to see life as a process of becoming, not a performance to be judged. You become gentler with yourself, more patient, more resilient. And the beautiful thing is, this shift doesn't just transform your own life, it influences everyone around you. When a woman chooses purpose, she gives silent permission for others to do the same. Her courage becomes a mirror that reflects possibility. People begin to see that it's okay to dream differently, to stand alone, to build something meaningful even when no one understands it yet. The world has enough people trying to fit in. What it needs are people brave enough to stand out, not for attention, but for authenticity. Living for approval keeps you small. Living for purpose makes you free. It's not the easier path, but it's the one that lets you look in the mirror and feel proud of the person staring back at you. So ask yourself, whose life are you really living? The one that earns claps from the crowd, or the one that makes your soul feel alive? Because at the end of it all, the noise fades, the applause dies down, the only voice left is your own. And if that voice says, I live true to myself, that's when you know you've lived a rare life. That's the power of choosing purpose over approval. It's not about being perfect, it's about being real. It's about walking through the world with your head high, not because everyone agrees with you, but because you finally agree with yourself. It's easy to react. It's hard to respond. Rare women understand this difference. In a world that glorifies instant replies, online arguments, and emotional explosions, they stand still, grounded and centered. They don't let every comment shake their peace. There's a saying, power is not in reacting. Power is in remaining calm when others lose control. That's emotional discipline. Emotional discipline is one of the most powerful skills a person can ever develop, yet it is often the least understood. Many people mistake it for being cold, distant, or emotionless, but it's the complete opposite. It's not about suppressing how you feel. It's about understanding your emotions deeply and choosing how to respond rather than allowing them to control you. It's about mastering the space between what happens and how you react. That space is where wisdom lives, where strength is born, and where rare women stand out from the crowd. In life, emotions are inevitable. Anger, sadness, jealousy, frustration, fear, they visit all of us. But how we handle them defines who we become. Most people react instantly when triggered. Someone says something hurtful and they lash out. Something goes wrong and they crumble. They let the emotion of the moment dictate the direction of their life. A rare woman, however, understands that emotions are powerful messengers, not dictators. She doesn't fight them, but she doesn't obey them either. She listens, learns, and then leads herself with intention. Imagine a woman who walks into a meeting where her ideas are dismissed. She feels that familiar wave of anger and disappointment rise inside her. In that moment, she has two choices. She can snap, raise her voice, and let frustration define her, or she can take a breath, hold her ground calmly, and let her composure speak louder than her words ever could. The first reaction might feel satisfying for a second, but the second builds credibility, respect, and self-trust for a lifetime. That's emotional discipline, the quiet power of staying centered when everything around you tries to pull you off balance. When you master your emotions, you master your direction. Emotions are like the weather, they shift constantly. You can't control when the storm comes, but you can decide whether to stand firm or get swept away. The rare woman chooses to be the calm in the storm. She knows that people who cannot control their emotions will always be controlled by circumstances, while those who can lead not only themselves, but others. Think of leaders, mothers, creators, or friends who make you feel safe, who don't add to the chaos, but bring peace into it. They have learned the art of pausing. They know that silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. They can feel the heat of anger, the pull of fear, the sting of criticism, and still choose their next step instead of reacting impulsively. That's not something they were born with. It's something they built through self-awareness, reflection, and practice. Emotional discipline also means you stop giving people the power to control your mood. You realize that not every comment deserves a reaction. Not every insult needs a defense. And not every misunderstanding requires a fight. You begin to see that protecting your peace is more important than proving your point. When you stop reacting to every little thing, you start to gain incredible freedom. The world loses its grip on your inner state. You start responding with grace instead of resistance. It's important to understand that emotional discipline doesn't mean you never feel pain. You still do. You still cry, you still hurt, you still get disappointed. The difference is, you don't let those emotions define your next action. You don't let a bad moment turn into a bad day, or a bad day turn into a bad life. You learn to sit with discomfort, to breathe through it, to extract the lesson and move forward. This is strength in its purest form. There's something deeply inspiring about someone who can face chaos and still remain calm. It's not because life is easier for them. It's because they've trained their mind to choose perspective over panic. They understand that reactions create ripple effects. The way you respond to one moment can alter everything that comes after it. So they choose to respond with thoughtfulness, not emotion. They choose to pause before they speak, to breathe before they act, and to think before they decide. Over time, this discipline becomes a quiet superpower. People trust women who can stay composed under pressure. They turn to them in times of uncertainty, not because they have all the answers, but because their presence feels steady. Emotional discipline builds influence, but more than that, it builds peace. It allows you to lead with clarity, to love with maturity, and to live with stability. In relationships, this discipline creates understanding instead of conflict. In work, it turns challenges into opportunities. In personal growth, it transforms pain into progress. When you no longer let emotions control you, you start making decisions from a place of clarity instead of chaos. And that's when your life begins to align with who you truly are, not just how you feel in the moment. It's a daily practice. You don't master emotional discipline overnight. You build it every time you choose not to react immediately. Every time. You breathe through discomfort instead of exploding. Every time you respond with grace instead of anger. Over time, these small choices shape you into someone unshakable. The rare woman who practices emotional discipline walks through life with quiet confidence. She is not the loudest in the room, but she is the most centered. Her calmness doesn't mean she feels less. It means she understands more. And in a world that is constantly pushing people to react, she remains the one who chooses to rise above, to think clearly, to act with purpose. That is her strength. That is her power. And that is what makes her truly rare. We live in a world obsessed with filters and followers. But rare women understand that real power doesn't come from a mirror. It comes from the mind. They read. They learn. They listen, they evolve. They know that trends fade, but wisdom compounds. There's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're growing, from understanding that self-worth isn't measured in likes, but in lessons. There is a difference between appearing successful and becoming successful, between looking confident and being confident, between being admired and being fulfilled. Many people spend their lives polishing their image, hoping that if they can look good enough, sound smart enough, or seem happy enough, they will finally feel complete inside. But a rare kind of woman realizes that growth is far more valuable than image. She understands that the work done within will always outlast the impression made outside. We live in a world that rewards visibility. Social media tells us that being seen matters more than being real. It's easy to fall into the trap of performing instead of progressing. You scroll through endless feeds of perfect smiles, flawless skin, and filtered success stories, and without realizing it, you start measuring your worth against illusions. But deep down, there's a quiet voice that whispers, there must be more than this. There must be more to life than pretending. And there is. Growth is what gives you depth. It's what gives you character, confidence, and purpose that no amount of surface polish can replace. Growth is not glamorous. It happens in silence, in solitude, in moments when no one is clapping for you. It happens when you choose to learn instead of complain, when you admit your flaws instead of hiding them, when you decide to become better instead of just looking better. Imagine a woman who spends her evenings not comparing herself to others online, but reading, reflecting, and learning something new. She invests her time in understanding who she is, what she believes in, and how she can contribute to the world. She might not always have the perfect picture to post, but she carries a calm confidence that no camera can capture. People feel her presence, they trust her words. That's the kind of beauty that never fades, because it's built on substance, not performance. Investing in growth means you care more about progress than perfection. It means you're willing to look foolish while learning something new, because you know that every great skill begins with imperfection. It means you value curiosity over comparison. You ask questions, you seek feedback, you challenge yourself even when it's uncomfortable. You stop trying to be impressive and start trying to be real. There's something deeply powerful about people who grow quietly. They are not in a rush to prove themselves because they know that truth needs no decoration. They are rooted, grounded, and unshakable, not because they never fall, but because they keep rising. Growth gives you that kind of resilience. It teaches you that failure is not something to be ashamed of, but a necessary part of becoming. Think of a woman who chooses to spend her weekends learning a new skill instead of chasing approval. She takes online courses, reads about leadership, studies communication, or learns about finance. She knows that every bit of knowledge she gains expands her world. She doesn't need validation because her self-worth is built on competence, not compliments. Years later, when the trends change and the noise fades, she stands tall, not because she kept up, but because she grew up. The truth is, image fades. No matter how perfect you look today, it will change. But growth compounds. It becomes part of your character, your mindset, your decisions, your legacy. It's the invisible foundation beneath everything you do. People might not see the hours you spend improving yourself, but they will feel it in the way you speak, lead, love, and live. When you invest in growth, you also begin to attract different things. The right people find you because they recognize depth. Opportunities come because you've prepared for them, not because you've pretended to deserve them. You stop chasing attention and start earning respect. You stop fearing competition because your focus shifts from being better than others to being better than who you were yesterday. Growth also gives you freedom. When your sense of value comes from within, the world loses its power to define you. You no longer need to please everyone or prove yourself constantly. You can walk away from what doesn't align with your purpose because your worth isn't attached to approval anymore. That's the kind of quiet confidence that changes everything. And yes, growth takes time. It's not instant like a post or a photo. It's slow, steady, and often invisible to others. But the transformation it brings is real. It builds wisdom. It strengthens faith. It creates a sense of peace that no image can replicate. When you grow, you stop chasing the spotlight because you realize your light was never meant to be compared. It was meant to guide. The rare woman understands that her outer beauty might open doors, but her inner growth is what keeps them open. She invests in her mind, her heart, and her spirit because she knows that's where true power lies. She's not defined by how many people notice her, but by how deeply she knows herself. At the end of the day, the image you project will fade, but the person you become will stay. The mirror can only reflect what is visible, but growth shapes what is eternal. So nurture that. Choose depth over display, learning over likes, growth over glamour. Because the woman who keeps growing never stops shining, and her light comes from within. Rare women understand that love without respect isn't love at all. They don't beg to be chosen. They choose themselves first. Setting boundaries isn't about arrogance. It's about self-respect. It's about saying, I will not shrink myself just to make someone else comfortable. When a woman knows her worth, she stops over-explaining, over-jiving, and over-compromising. She learns that it's not her job to fix everyone. It's her job to protect her peace. Oprah once said, you teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. And rare women live by that truth every single day. There comes a time when every woman realizes that love, no matter how deep or beautiful, cannot thrive without respect. Boundaries are not walls that keep love away. They are the structure that allows love to breathe, grow, and stay pure. Many people believe that to love deeply means to give endlessly, to sacrifice everything, to always say yes. But the truth is, love without limits eventually loses its balance. Boundaries are what protect the essence of who you are, so that you can love freely without losing yourself in the process. A rare woman understands that boundaries are an expression of self-respect. They are not built out of pride or fear, but out of clarity. She knows what she can give and what she cannot, where her peace begins and where it ends. She doesn't confuse pleasing people with loving them. She doesn't stay in places that drain her just to prove her loyalty. She knows that real love doesn't ask her to shrink, to stay silent, or to suffer. Real love honors her truth, and boundaries help her protect that truth. In life, people will always test your limits. Some will do it intentionally, others will do it unconsciously. They will keep taking as long as you keep giving without pause. The rare woman learns that it's not others' responsibility to respect her boundaries. It's hers to enforce them. And that's where her strength comes from. She doesn't shout to be understood. She simply lives in a way that communicates what she will and will not allow. Her calm firmness is more powerful than any confrontation. Boundaries also teach others how to treat you. Every time you say no with grace, you remind the world that your time, energy, and emotions are valuable. Every time you stand firm on your principles, you build trust with yourself. That trust is sacred. It's what gives you confidence when life gets messy. When you betray your own boundaries for the sake of approval or comfort, you start to lose that trust. You begin to doubt your own worth. And soon, love turns into exhaustion. Many women are raised to believe that love means self-sacrifice. They are told to give everything, to fix everything, to be endlessly forgiving. But love is not meant to be a burden. It's meant to be a connection that uplifts both people. When one gives endlessly while the other only takes, love becomes an imbalance, not a bond. A rare woman understands this balance. She gives wholeheartedly, but she gives from a full cup, not an empty one. She knows that saying no sometimes is an act of love, both for herself and for others. Imagine a woman who is always available for everyone. She listens, she helps, she fixes, she gives. Over time, she begins to feel invisible. Her kindness is taken for granted. Her energy feels depleted. One day, she decides to pause. She starts saying no when her heart feels tired. She sets limits on her time. At first, people resist. Some even get angry. But eventually, something shifts. She starts to feel lighter, more peaceful, more herself. Her relationships don't disappear, they transform.